I am Elena Rodriguez, 29 years old, and I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. Growing up with my younger sister Sofia, I learned early that she had a talent for taking what was mine. My favorite dolls, my carefully saved birthday money, even my high school boyfriend. But nothing could have prepared me for what she announced at my birthday celebration last month. As she stood there, glowing with triumph, telling our entire family that she was carrying my husband Marcus's baby, I felt the ground shift beneath me. What neither of them realized was that I had been keeping a secret of my own. A secret that would expose their lies and change everything forever. Before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, let me know in the comments what country you're watching from, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever dealt with a manipulative family member. Trust me, you'll want to see how this story ends. Growing up as Sofia's older sister was like living in a house of mirrors where I was always the distorted reflection. From the moment she entered the world when I was 3, it became clear that Sofia possessed some magnetic quality that drew people to her like moths to flame. She was the child who could charm her way out of any punishment, who could make adults laugh with a single dimpled smile, who seemed to glide through life effortlessly while I struggled for every scrap of attention. Our parents, both hardworking immigrants from Mexico, had different expectations for each of us. Sofia was their little princess, the one who would marry well and be taken care of. I was their responsible one, the daughter who would achieve through hard work and determination. These labels shaped how they treated us from childhood. Sofia received dance lessons, pretty dresses, and indulgent smiles when she misbehaved. I received lectures about setting a good example, hand-me-down clothes, and the expectation that I would always be the mature one, regardless of my age. Sofia learned early that she could take what she wanted simply by wanting it loudly enough. When I saved my allowance for months to buy a special music box, Sofia would cry and declare that she wanted it more. My parents, exhausted by her dramatics, would suggest I share with my little sister. Sharing, in Sofia's world, meant that she got to keep my treasures in her room while I watched them collect dust. The pattern continued through our teenage years. Sofia would borrow my clothes without asking, returning them stained or torn with a careless apology. She would flirt with boys I liked, not because she was interested in them, but because she enjoyed proving she could take them from me. When I was accepted to the National Honor Society, Sofia suddenly developed an interest in academics and convinced our parents to hire her a tutor. When I got my first job to save money for college, Sofia convinced our father to increase her allowance because it wasn't fair that I had spending money and she didn't. College was supposed to be my escape. I won a scholarship to UCLA, far enough from home to finally breathe freely. For 4 years, I flourished without Sofia's shadow. I studied business administration, made genuine friends who value my thoughts and opinions, and discovered parts of myself I never knew existed. I was elected president of the business club, maintained a 3.8 GPA, and landed internships at respected companies. It was during my senior year that I met Marcus Thompson at a networking event. He was a year older, working as a financial analyst at a downtown firm, with dark hair and kind eyes that seemed to see straight through to my soul. When I spilled wine on his shirt during our first conversation, he laughed and said it was the most interesting introduction he'd had all evening. We talked until the event ended, then found a coffee shop and continued talking until sunrise. Marcus was everything I hadn't dared to hope for. He was ambitious but not ruthless, successful but not arrogant. He listened when I talked about my dreams of starting my own consulting firm. He supported my goals without trying to diminish them. Most importantly, he saw me as I truly was, not as someone's responsible older sister or dependable backup plan. We dated for 3 years, building a relationship based on mutual respect and shared ambitions. When Marcus proposed during a weekend trip to San Francisco, presenting me with a ring he'd chosen himself after months of secretly asking about my preferences, I felt like I had finally found my place in the world. We planned our wedding with excited anticipation, choosing a small, elegant celebration that reflected our personalities rather than my family's expectations. Sofia had graduated from UC San Diego by then and was working as a marketing coordinator, though she seemed to change jobs frequently due to difficult bosses and toxic work environments. She had moved back home after college, claiming she needed to save money, but I suspected she enjoyed being the center of our parents' attention again. When I announced my engagement, Sofia's reaction was telling. Instead of congratulations, her first question was about Marcus's salary. "Does he make good money?" she asked, examining my ring with calculating eyes. "That diamond looks expensive. He must be doing well for himself." Despite my reservations, I asked Sofia to be my maid of honor. Our mother had insisted, saying it would be cruel to exclude her own sister from such an important role. I should have recognized the warning signs during the wedding planning process. Sofia showed up late to dress fittings, criticized my choices, and suggested improvements that would make the wedding more fun and memorable. At my bridal shower, she wore a cream-colored dress that was practically white, then acted surprised when guests commented on it. The wedding day itself was beautiful despite Sofia's attempts to steal attention. She took forever getting ready, making us late for photos. During the ceremony, she smiled a little too brightly at Marcus during their moment together at the altar. At the reception, she gave a speech that was supposedly about me but somehow centered on her own thoughts about love and marriage. Marcus squeezed my hand during her rambling toast and whispered, "She's just jealous, because you're perfect." The first year of our marriage was everything I had hoped for. Marcus and I bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, both advanced in our careers, and began talking about our future together. We discussed having children someday, traveling, maybe starting that consulting firm I'd always dreamed about. Life felt full of possibility. Then gradually things began to change. Marcus started working longer hours, coming home exhausted and distant. He became protective of his phone, always placing its screen down and jumping slightly when it buzzed. Our intimate moments became less frequent, replaced by polite conversations about work and household logistics. When I tried to discuss the growing distance between us, he would blame stress from his job or promise things would improve after his next big project. About 6 months ago, I noticed that Marcus had been receiving frequent text messages from someone listed in his phone as S. Marketing. The frequency and timing of these messages seemed odd for professional communications. They came late at night, early in the morning, and throughout weekends. When I asked about them, Marcus explained that he was working with a marketing consultant on a project for his company. My suspicions grew when I found a receipt in Marcus's jacket pocket for an expensive restaurant I'd never been to. When I asked about it, he claimed it was a business dinner that had been reimbursed by his company. But something about his explanation felt rehearsed, like he'd been preparing for this question. The final piece of the puzzle came when I was doing laundry and found a small piece of paper in Marcus's shirt pocket. It was a parking stub from a hotel downtown, dated on a Wednesday afternoon when Marcus had supposedly been in meetings at his office. The hotel was nowhere near his workplace, and he'd never mentioned having any business there. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. While Marcus was in the shower, I looked at his phone. The screen was locked, but I knew his password, our anniversary date, which he'd never bothered to change. The messages from S. Marketing were not professional at all. They were intimate, romantic, and explicitly sexual. My hands shook as I read conversations that detailed their meetings, their feelings for each other, and their plans for future encounters. The most devastating message was from 3 days earlier. "I can't wait to tell everyone about us. This secret is killing me. I love you so much, Marcus. We're going to be so happy together." His response made my blood run cold. "I love you too, S. Soon everyone will know. Just give me a little more time to figure out how to tell Elena. She doesn't deserve this, but I can't help how I feel about you." S. Marketing. Sofia worked in marketing. Sofia, who had always taken what was mine. Sofia, who had been unusually interested in my marriage lately, asking probing questions about Marcus's work schedule and our relationship. Sofia, who had been visiting our parents more frequently, always asking when Marcus and I might stop by. I took screenshots of the most damning messages, sent them to my own phone, then deleted the evidence of my snooping. Marcus emerged from the shower to find me reading a book in bed, acting perfectly normal while my world collapsed around me. Over the next few days, I began to notice things I'd previously overlooked. Marcus's late nights at work, coincided with Sofia's mysterious absences from family dinners. The expensive cologne he'd started wearing was the same brand I'd smelled on Sofia during our last family gathering. The business trips he'd mentioned were to cities where Sofia had suddenly developed interests in visiting. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Catherine Mills who specialized in infidelity cases. Within a week, she had photographed Marcus and Sofia together at restaurants, hotels, and even at Sofia's apartment. The evidence was undeniable and heartbreaking. My husband of 2 years and my sister were having an affair. As my birthday approached, I made a decision. Rather than confronting them immediately, I would wait and see how they planned to handle their secret. I had a feeling Sofia wouldn't be able to resist making some grand gesture, some dramatic announcement that would center her as the victim or the hero of her own story. My birthday dinner was planned for Rosario's, a family-owned Italian restaurant where we'd celebrated important occasions for years. Our parents had insisted on hosting, and Marcus had promised to make it special. As I got ready that evening, I looked at myself in the mirror and made a promise. Whatever happened tonight, I would not let them break me. The restaurant was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and the comforting smell of garlic and fresh bread. Our table was set for 5, my parents, Marcus, Sofia, and me. I arrived first, having told Marcus I would meet him there after a last-minute work call. The hostess, Mrs. Rosario, greeted me with a warm smile and led me to our usual corner table. My parents arrived next, my mother immediately fussing over the table setting and my father checking his watch to make sure we were on schedule. They seemed nervous, exchanging glances that suggested they knew something I didn't. "Where's Marcus?" my mother asked, smoothing her dress and adjusting her jewelry. "I thought he'd be here by now." "He's running a few minutes late," I replied, taking my seat. "Work emergency." Sofia arrived 20 minutes late, making an entrance that drew attention from other diners. She wore a flowing red dress that hugged her curves and highlighted her glowing complexion. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and she seemed to radiate an inner light that made her even more beautiful than usual. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, kissing my cheek with theatrical affection. Traffic was absolutely insane. Marcus arrived moments later, looking nervous and avoiding eye contact with me. He kissed my forehead absently and took his seat, immediately reaching for his water glass with slightly shaking hands. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he said, his voice lacking its usual warmth. "Sorry about the delay. You know how it is." The conversation during appetizers was stilted and strange. My parents kept exchanging meaningful looks. Sofia seemed barely able to contain her excitement about something. Marcus picked at his food and checked his phone repeatedly. I ate steadily, watching the dynamics at the table and waiting for whatever bomb was about to drop. As the main course arrived, Sofia suddenly stood up, tapping her wine glass with her fork to get everyone's attention. The gesture was so formal, so obviously rehearsed, that I knew the moment had arrived. "I have an announcement to make," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the restaurant. And I thought Elena's birthday would be the perfect time to share our wonderful news. Our news. The phrase hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral, fork halfway to my mouth. "As you all know," Sofia continued, placing a protective hand over her stomach, "I've been keeping a secret for a few weeks now. But I can't keep it to myself any longer." She paused dramatically, her eyes scanning the table before landing on mine with unmistakable triumph. "I'm pregnant," she announced. "Marcus and I are going to have a baby." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's fork clattered to his plate. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Marcus stared at the tablecloth as if it contained the secrets of the universe. "Sofia," my mother whispered, "what did you just say?" "I'm pregnant with Marcus's baby," Sofia repeated, her voice stronger now, more confident. "We've been in love for months, but we didn't know how to tell everyone. The baby just made it impossible to keep our secret any longer." I set down my fork with deliberate care, took a sip of water, and looked directly at my sister. The triumph in her eyes was unmistakable. She thought she had won the ultimate prize, stolen the ultimate treasure from me. "Congratulations," I said calmly. "How far along are you?" Sofia's smile widened. 8 weeks. We just found out for sure yesterday. 8 weeks, I repeated thoughtfully. That's interesting timing. Marcus finally looked up, his face pale and drawn. Elena, I know this is a shock. Is it? I interrupted. A shock would be something unexpected. This is just confirmation. My parents were staring at me in disbelief. My mother looked like she might faint. My father appeared to be calculating whether he could reach Marcus before restaurant security intervened. Elena, Sofia said, her voice taking on a concerned tone that I recognized from childhood. I know this is hard to understand, but Marcus and I really love each other. We try to fight it, but some things are just meant to be. I nodded, as if considering this profound wisdom. Some things are meant to be, I agreed. Like the truth coming out at exactly the right moment. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope I'd been carrying for 2 weeks, waiting for this exact moment. Inside were the photographs Catherine Mills had taken, the screenshots of their text messages, and one additional document that would change everything. Before we continue this conversation, I said, sliding the envelope across the table, there's something you both should know. I've been aware of your affair for quite some time. Sofia's smile faltered. Marcus looked like he might be sick. I hired a private investigator. I continued conversationally. Catherine Mills. She's very thorough. Those photos show you two together at the Marriott downtown, at Bruno's restaurant, and entering Sofia's apartment building on multiple occasions. My mother opened the envelope with trembling hands, her face growing paler with each photograph she examined. The text messages are particularly interesting, I added. Especially the ones where you discuss your feelings for each other and your plans to tell me about your relationship. Sofia had gone very still, her hand frozen on her stomach. But here's the most interesting part, I said, reaching into my purse again. The part that makes your announcement so curious. I pulled out a medical document and placed it on the table where everyone could see it. Marcus had a vasectomy 14 months ago, I announced. St. Mary's Hospital, Dr. Peterson. The procedure was performed after we discussed our plans for the future and decided we didn't want children. The color drained from Sofia's face. Marcus looked like he was going to pass out. That's not possible, Sofia whispered. You're lying. The medical records are right there, I said, pointing to the document. Marcus, would you like to confirm this for everyone? Marcus's silence was confirmation enough. So, Sofia, I continued, if you're truly pregnant, and congratulations if you are, the baby certainly isn't Marcus's. He's been shooting blanks for over a year. My mother was examining the medical document with the intensity of a forensic scientist. My father was staring at Marcus with unconcealed disgust. There must be some mistake, Sofia said weakly. Marcus told me. Marcus told you what you wanted to hear? I interrupted. Just like he told me what I wanted to hear. The difference is, I actually investigated instead of just believing. Sofia looked around the table desperately, seeking support that wasn't coming. Elena, you don't understand. Marcus and I have something special. We're in love. Are you? I asked. Or did you just want what you thought was mine? Marcus finally found his voice. Elena, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen like this. Like what? I asked. You never meant to get caught? You never meant to have your lies exposed so publicly? Or you never meant to fall in love with someone who would try to trap you with a baby that isn't yours? Sofia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. She rushed toward the restaurant exit, leaving behind a table full of shocked silence and uncomfortable tension. Marcus started to follow her, then stopped, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Elena, can we talk about this privately? I don't think so, I replied. I think we're way past private conversations. My father cleared his throat. Marcus, I think you should leave. Sir, I know how this looks. It looks like you've been having an affair with my younger daughter while married to my older daughter, my father said coldly. How exactly should it look? Marcus gathered his jacket and stood up. Elena, I'll call you tomorrow. We need to discuss arrangements. My lawyer will be in touch, I said simply. After Marcus left, my mother finally spoke. Elena, how long have you known? About the affair? A few weeks. About the vasectomy? Since the day he had it done. Why didn't you tell us? She asked. Because I wanted to see how far they would go, I replied. I wanted to see if Sofia would actually try to pass off another man's baby as my husband's. My father was shaking his head. Your sister has always been difficult. But this is who she's always been, I said. The only difference is that this time, I was prepared. Sofia returned to the table 10 minutes later, her makeup repaired but her composure shattered. She slid into her chair without making eye contact with anyone. Sofia, my mother said gently, if you're pregnant, we need to know who the father really is. Sofia's hands twisted in her lap. There was someone else, she admitted quietly. Before Marcus. His name is David. He's married. My father groaned. Another married man? It was just a few times, Sofia said defensively. I ended it when Marcus and I got serious. But the timing means David could be the father, I said. Sofia nodded miserably. I hoped it was Marcus's. The dates were close enough that I convinced myself. You convinced yourself because it was convenient, I said. Because claiming Marcus was the father fit your narrative better than admitting you were sleeping with 2 married men. My mother looked heartbroken. Sofia, how could you do this to your sister? I didn't plan it, Sofia said, tears streaming down her face. I've always felt like Elena got everything. The good grades, the scholarship, the perfect husband. I wanted something that was mine. So you took what was mine instead, I said. Again. Sofia looked up at me, with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry, Elena. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I really am sorry. I studied my sister's face, seeing the little girl who had always needed to be the center of attention, who had never learned to find worth in herself without taking it from others. I know you are, I said finally, but sorry doesn't undo the damage. The rest of the dinner was subdued and awkward. My parents were clearly struggling with how to process Sofia's betrayal and their own role in enabling her behavior over the years. Sofia picked at her food and avoided eye contact with everyone. I ate my meal methodically, feeling strangely calm despite the chaos around me. When the check came, I insisted on paying. It's my birthday dinner, I said. I should handle it. As we prepared to leave, Sofia grabbed my arm. Elena, can we talk? Just for a minute. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. What's left to say, Sofia? I don't know, she admitted. I need my sister. You should have thought of that before you slept with my husband, I replied, gently removing her hand from my arm. Walking out of the restaurant, I felt a strange sense of freedom. The worst had happened, the truth was out, and I had survived it with my dignity intact. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. Over the following weeks, the full scope of the situation became clear. Sofia was indeed pregnant, and DNA testing would eventually confirm that David was the father. David's wife filed for divorce when Sofia contacted him about the pregnancy. Marcus moved out of our house and into a hotel while we navigated the divorce proceedings. The divorce was relatively straightforward, thanks to the evidence I'd gathered and the prenuptial agreement we'd signed. Marcus didn't contest the division of assets, perhaps recognizing that his position was indefensible. Sofia and Marcus's relationship crumbled quickly once the excitement of their secret affair was replaced by the reality of their situation. Without the thrill of sneaking around and the forbidden nature of their connection, they discovered they had little in common. Marcus was particularly bitter about being lied to regarding the pregnancy, while Sofia was devastated to realize he had never actually loved her. He had simply been attracted to the idea of her. My parents struggled with how to handle Sofia's pregnancy and their own feelings about her betrayal. My mother wanted to support Sofia through the pregnancy, but also felt obligated to express disapproval of her actions. My father was more direct in his disappointment, telling Sofia that she had disappointed him deeply and would need to face the consequences of her choices. As for me, I threw myself into work and began the process of rebuilding my life. I had saved money throughout my marriage and the divorce settlement left me financially stable. I started looking for a new apartment, something that would be entirely mine, free from the memories of the life I had shared with Marcus. The most surprising development was the clarity I found in the aftermath of the betrayal. While the pain was real and the sense of loss profound, I also felt liberated from a marriage that had been built on lies and from family dynamics that had never served me well. 3 months after my birthday dinner, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop near my office. He looked tired and older, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated posture that was completely different from the confident man I had married. "Elena," he said, approaching my table hesitantly. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Sure." He sat down, fidgeting with his hands. I wanted to apologize. "I know it's too late, but I needed to say it." "Okay," I said simply. "I was stupid," he continued. "I threw away something good for something that was never real. Sofia and we brought out the worst in each other. I think I was attracted to the drama, the excitement of doing something forbidden. But it wasn't love. It was just destructive." I sipped my coffee and waited for him to continue. "I know you'll never forgive me," he said. "I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life." "Marcus," I said gently, "I appreciate the apology. But what you did wasn't just a mistake. It was a series of choices made over months that showed me exactly who you are. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not interested in relitigating our relationship either." He nodded sadly. "I understand. I hope you find happiness. Real happiness. You deserve it." As he left, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. The man I had loved was gone, replaced by someone who had revealed his true character through his actions. The grief I felt was for what I had thought we had, not for what we had actually shared. 6 months after my birthday dinner, I moved into a beautiful apartment in a part of the city I had always loved. I decorated it with colors Marcus had always disliked, filled it with plants he had considered too much trouble, and created a space that reflected my personality without compromise. Sofia had her baby, a healthy boy she named Gabriel. David had agreed to provide financial support but wanted no parental relationship. Sofia was raising Gabriel alone, living with our parents and working part-time while caring for her son. Our relationship remained strained, but not completely severed. I had visited Sofia in the hospital after Gabriel's birth, moved by the sight of my nephew and the genuine love I saw in Sofia's eyes when she looked at him. It was clear that motherhood was changing her, forcing her to think beyond her own immediate wants for the first time in her life. "He's beautiful," I had said, holding Gabriel while Sofia rested. "Elena," she had whispered, "I know I destroyed everything between us. But I want to be better for him. I want to be the kind of mother who raises a son who would never do what I did." I had looked at her, seeing genuine remorse and determination in her eyes. "Then be better, Sofia. For him and for yourself." It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was a beginning. We were both learning to navigate a new relationship built on honesty rather than competition, on boundaries rather than entitlement. 1 year after the birthday dinner that changed everything, I was promoted to senior manager at my company. I had also started dating again, meeting someone who valued my independence and respected my boundaries. James was nothing like Marcus. He was steady where Marcus had been exciting, honest where Marcus had been charming, and secure enough in himself that he didn't need constant validation. My parents had gradually rebuilt their relationship with me, acknowledging the role their favoritism had played in shaping the family dynamics. They were more careful now about treating Sofia and me equally, more aware of how their words and actions affected both of us. As I prepared for my 30th birthday, I reflected on the lessons of the past year. I had learned that betrayal, while painful, could also be liberating. It had forced me to examine my relationships, my boundaries, and my own sense of worth. I had discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed, and found that I could survive even the worst betrayals with my integrity intact. The woman who had sat calmly in that restaurant, revealing her husband's secret surgery while her world collapsed around her, had emerged stronger and more self-aware. I had learned to value myself enough to demand honesty, to set boundaries that protected my well-being, and to walk away from relationships that didn't serve me. My birthday celebration this year was small and intimate, surrounded by friends who had supported me through the darkest period of my life. As I looked around the table at faces filled with genuine affection and respect, I realized that I had found something better than what I had lost. I had found people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide or how I could serve their needs. James raised his glass for a toast. To Elena, he said, who taught us all that grace under pressure isn't just a saying, it's a way of life. As everyone raised their glasses, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the betrayal itself, but for the strength I had found in surviving it. The woman who had been devastated by her sister's announcement had been transformed into someone who knew her own worth and wouldn't settle for less than she deserved. The pain of that night at Rosario's had been real and profound, but it had also been necessary. It had shattered the illusions that had kept me trapped in unhealthy relationships and forced me to build something better from the ruins. Looking back, I could see that Sofia's betrayal had been the catalyst for the best year of my life. Not because the betrayal itself was good, but because it had forced me to stop accepting crumbs and start demanding the full meal. It had taught me the difference between being loved and being convenient, between being valued and being useful. As I blew out the candles on my birthday cake, I made a wish for continued growth, for healthy relationships, and for the courage to keep demanding the respect I deserved. The woman who had started this story feeling broken and betrayed had become someone who knew her own strength and wouldn't let anyone diminish it again. The birthday dinner from hell had become the beginning of the best chapter of my life. And for that unexpected gift, I was genuinely grateful. But life, as I was learning, had more lessons to teach me. Just when I thought I had found my footing, another revelation would shake the foundation I had so carefully rebuilt. 2 years after that fateful birthday dinner, I received a phone call that would change everything once again. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my mother's number. Elena, Mija. My mother's voice was shaking. I need to tell you something important. About your father. My blood went cold. What's wrong? Is he okay? He's fine physically, she said quickly. But there's something he needs to tell you. About Sofia. About everything. That evening, I sat in my childhood living room, facing my father across the coffee table where I had done homework as a child. His hands were clasped tightly in his lap, and he looked older than I had ever seen him. Elena, he began, his voice heavy with emotion. I owe you an apology. A bigger one than I've ever given anyone in my life. I waited, sensing that whatever was coming would be significant. The favoritism you always felt towards Sofia, he continued. It wasn't just because she was younger or more demanding. There was a reason we treated her differently, and you deserved to know the truth years ago. My mother sat beside him, tears already flowing down her cheeks. Sofia isn't your full sister, my father said quietly. She's your half-sister. I had an affair when your mother was pregnant with you, and Sofia was born from that relationship. Her biological mother died when Sofia was 2, and we decided to raise her as our own. The words hit me like a physical blow. Everything I had believed about my family, about the dynamics that had shaped my entire life, was built on a lie. That's why we gave her more attention, my mother said through her tears. We felt guilty about the circumstances of her birth, about the pain we caused each other. We overcompensated by spoiling her, and we were so wrong to do that at your expense. I stared at them, processing this information. So the woman I thought was my sister, who destroyed my marriage, isn't even my full sister? She's still your sister, my father said quickly. Blood doesn't determine family. But we should have told you the truth from the beginning. We should have explained why we felt the need to treat her differently, and we should have made sure you never felt less loved because of it. Does Sofia know? I asked. My parents exchanged glances. We told her last week, my mother said. She was devastated. She said it explained so much about her behavior, about why she always felt like she had to compete with you for our love. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I had played as a child, where I had learned to ride a bike, where I had first understood that I would always be second to Sofia in my parents' hearts. "Elena," my father said behind me, "I know this doesn't excuse what Sofia did to you. Nothing excuses that. But it might help explain why she's always felt the need to take what was yours. She was trying to prove she belonged, that she was worthy of the same love you received naturally." I turned back to face them.
"And what about me?"
"What about the child who was actually yours, who watched her parents favor the daughter, who wasn't even biologically theirs?" My father's face crumpled. "We failed you, Mija. We failed you in every way parents can fail a child. We let our guilt about our mistakes hurt an innocent little girl who deserved better." The anger I felt was different from the anger I had experienced during my divorce. This was deeper, more fundamental. It was the rage of a lifetime of feeling inadequate, of never understanding why I couldn't earn the love that Sofia received effortlessly. "I need time to process this," I said, grabbing my purse. "I need to think." "Elena, please," my mother called as I headed toward the door. "Don't leave angry. We love you. We've always loved you." "Have you?" I asked, pausing at the door. Because it never felt that way. I drove aimlessly for hours, processing the revelation that had turned my understanding of my family upside down. The little girl who had tried so hard to be perfect, to be worthy of her parents' love, had been competing against guilt and shame that had nothing to do with her. When I finally returned home, I found Sofia sitting on my doorstep, holding Gabriel, who is now a chubby, happy 2-year-old. "Elena," she said, standing up as I approached. "Mom told me you know now." I looked at my nephew, who reached his arms out to me with a smile. Despite everything, I loved this little boy who had done nothing wrong. "Tia Elena," he said, using the Spanish word for aunt that Sofia had taught him. I took him into my arms, holding him close while Sofia and I faced each other. "I'm sorry," Sofia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for everything. For taking Marcus, for the lies, for all of it. And I'm sorry you had to grow up feeling like you weren't enough because of my existence." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I had never seen before. The desperate need for approval, the constant anxiety about belonging, the fear that had driven her to take what wasn't hers. "Sofia," I said quietly, "you were a child. What happened between our parents wasn't your fault. But what you did to me as an adult, that was your choice." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I've been in therapy for over a year, trying to understand why I've always felt like I had to compete with you. Learning about my biological mother, about the circumstances of my birth, it explained so much. But it doesn't excuse what I did." Gabriel squirmed in my arms, reaching for his mother. I handed him back to Sofia, watching as she held him protectively. "I'm trying to be better," she said. "For Gabriel, for myself, for our family. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to make amends." I studied her face, seeing genuine remorse and a maturity that hadn't been there before. "What does making amends look like to you?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe it starts with being honest about everything. With taking responsibility for my actions without making excuses. With respecting your boundaries and not expecting forgiveness just because I want it." We stood there in the fading light, two women shaped by the same family dysfunction, both trying to find our way to something healthier. "I'm not ready to be close again," I said finally. "I'm not sure I ever will be. But I don't want to hate you anymore. It's exhausting, and it's not good for any of us." Sofia nodded. "I understand. I don't expect anything from you, Elena. I just want you to know that I see what I did now. I see how I hurt you, and I'm sorry." As I watched Sofia drive away with Gabriel, I felt a strange sense of peace. The truth about my family's foundation had been painful to learn, but it had also provided context for a lifetime of confusion and hurt. Over the following months, I began to rebuild my relationship with my parents on new terms. They attended family therapy sessions with me, working to understand how their choices had affected both Sofia and me. It was difficult work, facing decades of dysfunction and favoritism, but it was also healing. My father struggled the most with his guilt about the affair and its long-term consequences. I was young and stupid, he told me during one session. I made a terrible mistake that hurt everyone I loved. But instead of dealing with it honestly, I compounded the damage by trying to ease my guilt through favoritism. My mother was more defensive initially, but gradually began to understand how her complicity in the favoritism had damaged both of her daughters. I thought I was protecting Sofia, she said. I thought if we gave her extra love, extra attention, it would make up for the circumstances of her birth. But I was really just trying to make myself feel better about what we'd done. The therapist helped us understand that while the revelation explained the family dynamics, it didn't excuse them. My parents had choices at every step, and they had consistently chosen to prioritize Sofia's needs over mine, creating a toxic environment that had damaged both of us. As we worked through these issues, I found myself able to forgive my parents in a way I hadn't expected. Not because what they had done was okay, but because I finally understood their motivations and could see their genuine remorse. My relationship with Sofia remained complicated. We were cordial at family gatherings, and I enjoyed spending time with Gabriel, but the closeness we had shared as children was gone. Perhaps that was for the best. We were both different people now, shaped by our experiences and choices. On my 32nd birthday, I celebrated with James and a small group of close friends. As I looked around the table, I realized that I had built something better than what I had lost. I had chosen my family this time, surrounding myself with people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide. James raised his glass for a toast. To Elena, he said, who shows us every day that we have the power to choose our own story. As everyone raised their glasses, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the betrayal, not for the family dysfunction, but for the strength I had found in surviving it all. The woman who had been devastated by her sister's announcement had been transformed into someone who knew her own worth and wouldn't settle for less than she deserved. The truth about my family's foundation had been the final piece of the puzzle, helping me understand why I had always felt like I was fighting for love that should have been freely given. But understanding didn't mean accepting. It meant choosing to break the cycle, to build something better, to refuse to let other people's choices define my worth. As I blew out the candles on my birthday cake, I made a wish for continued growth, for healthy relationships, and for the courage to keep writing my own story. The woman who had started this journey feeling broken and betrayed had become someone who knew her own strength and wouldn't let anyone diminish it again. The birthday dinner from hell had been the catalyst for the most important growth of my life. And for that unexpected gift, despite all the pain it had caused, I was genuinely grateful. But life, it seemed, wasn't finished teaching me lessons. 3 years after my divorce was finalized, I received a call that would test everything I had learned about forgiveness, boundaries, and moving forward. It was Marcus. Elena. His voice was barely recognizable, rough and broken. I know I have no right to call you, but I need to tell you something.
I'm dying.
I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair, staring out the window at the life I had built without him. What do you mean? Pancreatic cancer, he said simply. Stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months. The silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of everything we had shared and lost. I'm sorry to hear that, I said finally, and I meant it. Whatever he had done to me, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I know I don't deserve an answer. But I need to make things right before I die. There are things about Sofia, about our affair, that you don't know. Things that might change how you see what happened. My blood went cold. What kind of things? I can't do this over the phone, he said. Could you meet me? Just once? I know it's a lot to ask, but I need to tell you the truth. The whole truth this time. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a small cafe near the hospital where he was receiving treatment. When I arrived, I barely recognized the man waiting for me. Marcus had always been lean, but now he was gaunt, his clothes hanging loose on his frame. His skin had a grayish pallor, and his eyes were sunken but held an intensity one had never seen before. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down across from him. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. What is it you need to tell me? He took a shaky breath. The affair with Sofia. It wasn't what you think it was. I mean, it happened, but not the way we told you. I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. What do you mean? Sofia blackmailed me, he said quietly. She didn't seduce me. She threatened to destroy my career if I didn't sleep with her. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. Sofia may be manipulative, but she's not. She had photographs, Marcus interrupted, from my bachelor party. Pictures of me in a compromising position with a stripper. Nothing happened, Elena. I swear to you nothing happened. But the photos looked bad, and Sofia said she would send them to your parents, to my boss, to everyone we knew if I didn't give her what she wanted. I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. You're lying. You're trying to make yourself look better by blaming Sofia. I wish I were, he said, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out a small recording device. She recorded some of our conversations. She wanted insurance that I wouldn't back out of our arrangement. I kept copies as my own insurance. He pressed play, and Sofia's voice filled the small space between us, clear and unmistakable. You know what happens if you try to back out, Marcus? Those photos go to Elena's parents first. Imagine their faces when they see what their precious son-in-law was doing at his bachelor party. Then your boss gets them. How do you think that will affect your promotion? Marcus's voice responded, sounding desperate and trapped. Sofia, please.
This isn't right.
I love Elena. Then you should have thought of that before you let that stripper put her hands all over you. Sofia's voice was cold, calculating. Now you belong to me. And if you're very good, maybe I'll let you keep your marriage and your job. Marcus stopped the recording. There are hours of these conversations, Elena. She planned everything. The pregnancy announcement, the timing of it at your birthday dinner, all of it. She wanted to hurt you, and she used me to do it. I felt nauseous. But the pregnancy. She was actually pregnant. With David's baby, yes. But she had broken up with him weeks before she started blackmailing me. She knew the timing would make it seem like the baby could be mine. She planned to use the pregnancy to force me to leave you and marry her.
The cafe seemed to spin around me.
Why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't you show me these recordings during the divorce? Marcus looked down at his hands. Because I was ashamed. Because I thought you'd blame me for putting myself in a position to be blackmailed. Because I thought you'd hate me even more if you knew how weak I was, how easily I was manipulated. So, you let me believe you had an affair willingly. You let me believe you fell in love with my sister. I thought it was better than the truth, he said quietly. I thought it was more dignified than admitting I was a victim of blackmail. I stood up abruptly, needing air, needing space to think. I need to process this. Elena, wait. Marcus called after me. There's more. About your parents, about Sofia's past. She's done this before. I turned back to him. What do you mean? She blackmailed David too. And his wife found out about it. That's why their marriage ended so badly. Sofia has a pattern of finding men's weaknesses and exploiting them. The revelation hit me like a tsunami. Everything I thought I knew about my sister, about my marriage, about the past 3 years of my life was built on lies within lies. I have proof, Marcus continued.
Photo, recording, document.
David's wife gave me copies when she found out about Sofia's pregnancy. She wanted someone to know the truth about what Sofia really is. I sat back down, my legs no longer able to support me. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm dying, he said simply. Because I can't face whatever comes next knowing I let you go on believing lies. Because you deserved better than what I gave you, and you deserve to know the truth now. He reached across the table and placed a flash drive in front of me. Everything is on here. Every recording, every photo, every piece of evidence. Do with it what you think is right. I stared at the small device, knowing it contained the power to completely rewrite the narrative of my life. Elena, Marcus said softly, I know this doesn't change what happened between us. I know I should have been stronger, should have told you the truth from the beginning. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. I looked at him, this dying man who had been my husband, who had broken my heart, who was now telling me that everything I thought I knew was wrong. I loved you too, I said quietly. That's what made the betrayal so devastating. I know, he said, and I'll regret that for whatever time I have left. I picked up the flash drive and put it in my purse. I need to go. I need to think about all of this. Elena, he called as I stood to leave. For what it's worth, I'm proud of who you've become. You're stronger than I ever was. I left the cafe in a daze, my mind reeling with the implications of what Marcus had told me. If it was true, then Sofia wasn't just manipulative and competitive, she was calculating and predatory. She had systematically destroyed my marriage not out of love or jealousy, but as part of some twisted game of power and control. That night, I sat in my apartment with my laptop, staring at the flash drive. James was out of town on business, and I was grateful for the solitude. I needed to process this alone before I could share it with anyone else. I inserted the drive and began to review the contents. Hours of audio recordings, dozens of photos, and a comprehensive file that David's ex-wife had apparently compiled documenting Sofia's pattern of behavior with multiple men over several years. The recordings were damning. Sofia's voice was cold and calculating as she outlined her plans to destroy my marriage and position herself as the victim. She had researched Marcus's background, identified his vulnerabilities, and exploited them with surgical precision. But the most shocking discovery was a recording dated 3 days before my birthday dinner, where Sofia was on the phone with someone I didn't recognize. Everything's in place, she was saying. I'll announce the pregnancy at Elena's birthday dinner. Marcus will be so panicked about the blackmail material that he'll go along with it. And Elena will finally understand what it feels like to lose everything. The voice on the other end was female, older. Are you sure about this, Mija? This seems extreme, even for you. She's had everything handed to her, Mama Rosa, Sofia replied. The perfect grades, the perfect husband, the perfect life. It's time she learned what it feels like to have nothing.
Mama Rosa.
That was what Sofia called our father's sister, our aunt who had always been jealous of my mother and had openly favored Sofia throughout our childhood. The realization that even our extended family had been involved in this conspiracy made me feel sick. I spent the entire night going through the evidence, piece by piece. By morning, I had a complete picture of a calculated campaign designed to destroy my life and elevate Sofia's. It wasn't about love or jealousy. It was about power and revenge. The next day, I called my parents and asked them to meet me at my apartment. I also called Sofia, telling her that I had something important to discuss about Gabriel's future. I didn't want to have this conversation multiple times. When they arrived, I could see the hope in Sofia's eyes. She probably thought I was ready to reconcile, to welcome her back into my life fully. My parents looked nervous, but optimistic. I had a conversation with Marcus yesterday. I began, watching Sofia's face carefully. He's dying of cancer. Sofia's face immediately arranged itself into an expression of appropriate concern. Oh no. That's terrible. I'm so sorry, Elena. He told me some interesting things. I continued. About the affair. About how it really started. Sofia's composure flickered for just a moment. What do you mean? Instead of answering, I connected my laptop to my television and pulled up one of the recordings. Sofia's voice filled the room, cold and calculating as she outlined her blackmail scheme. The color drained from Sofia's face. My mother gasped. My father stood up abruptly, his face flushed with anger. Elena, Sofia said quickly. I can explain. This isn't what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like, I replied, pausing the recording. You blackmailed my husband into having an affair with you. You planned to destroy my marriage as part of some twisted revenge scheme. Sofia, my mother whispered. Tell me this isn't true. But Sofia's mask had finally slipped completely. Instead of denying it, she laughed. A bitter, ugly sound that I had never heard from her before. So, what if it's true? She said, her voice filled with venom. So, what if I planned it? Elena got everything growing up, the love, the attention, the opportunities. I was tired of being the consolation prize. My father looked like he had been slapped. Sofia, what you did was evil. You destroyed your sister's marriage for revenge. I destroyed a marriage that was built on lies anyway, Sofia shot back. Marcus was weak. Elena was naive. I just exposed the truth. The truth is that you're a sociopath, I said quietly. The truth is that you've been manipulating and destroying people for years, and I have proof of that too. I played more recordings, showed more documents. With each piece of evidence, Sofia's facade crumbled further, until she was standing in my living room fully exposed as the calculating predator she had always been. You have no idea what it was like, she said finally, her voice shaking with rage. Growing up in your shadow, watching everyone love you effortlessly while I had to fight for every scrap of attention. I deserved better than what I got. You deserved what you earned, I replied. And what you earned was the consequences of your choices. My parents were horrified, apologetic, and completely at a loss for how to handle this revelation. My father, in particular, seemed broken by the realization that his guilt over Sofia's parentage had blinded him to her true nature. Elena, my mother said through her tears, what do we do now? I looked at Sofia, who was staring at me with unconcealed hatred. Now Sofia leaves. She takes Gabriel and she leaves, and she never contacts me again. You can't keep me from my family, Sofia said defiantly. I'm not keeping you from anyone, I replied. I'm choosing to remove myself from your sphere of influence. I'm done being your victim. Sofia gathered her things and left without another word, taking Gabriel with her. My parents stayed, trying to process what they had learned and figure out how to move forward. Elena, my father said heavily, I don't know how to apologize for this. I don't know how to make this right. You can't make it right, I said. But you can stop making excuses for her. You can stop enabling her behavior. And you can accept that some people are just broken in ways that can't be fixed. In the days that followed, I struggled with what to do with the evidence I had. Part of me wanted to expose Sofia publicly, to make sure everyone knew what she had done. But another part of me just wanted to be free of her completely. I decided to give copies of the evidence to David's ex-wife, who was still dealing with the aftermath of her own encounter with Sofia. I also gave copies to my lawyer, to be held in case Sofia ever tried to make trouble for me in the future. But mostly, I chose to let it go. Not because Sofia deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. I had spent too many years of my life dealing with her toxicity, and I was ready to be done. Marcus died 6 weeks later. I attended his funeral, not because I had forgiven him completely, but because I understood now that he had been a victim too, in his own way. His weakness had made him an easy target for Sofia's manipulation, but that didn't excuse his choices. It just explained them. At the funeral, I met Marcus's mother, who pulled me aside to thank me for coming. He talked about you until the end, she said. He said you were the best thing that ever happened to him, and that he would regret losing you forever. I'm sorry for your loss, I said, meaning it. He left something for you, she continued, pressing a small box into my hands. He said you'd understand what it meant. Inside the box was my original wedding ring. Not the one I had left on the nightstand when I moved out, but the simple band he had given me when we were first engaged, before we could afford something more elaborate. Under it was a note. This was real. Everything else was just noise.
I'm sorry.
I cried for him then, for the man he had been before Sofia's manipulation, for the marriage we might have had if he had been strong enough to tell me the truth from the beginning. But I also felt a sense of closure. The mystery that had haunted me for years was finally solved. The man I had loved had been weak, but he hadn't been evil. He had been a victim of Sofia's manipulation, just like I had been. Sofia disappeared from our lives completely after that confrontation. She moved to another state, taking Gabriel with her. My parents received occasional updates through mutual friends, but she never contacted them directly. They were heartbroken but also relieved, finally understanding that their attempts to help Sofia had only enabled her to hurt others. As I write this, 5 years have passed since that birthday dinner that changed everything. I'm now 34 years old, married to James, and expecting our first child. The woman who once thought she didn't want children has discovered that she does want them, just not with the wrong person. Looking back, I can see that Sofia's betrayal was both the worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever happened to me. It destroyed my illusions about family and love, but it also forced me to become the person I was meant to be, someone who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less. The little girl who grew up feeling inadequate has become a woman who understands that she was never the problem. The wife who blamed herself for her husband's infidelity has learned that she was the victim of a calculated campaign of destruction. The sister who spent years trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it has finally found peace in chosen family. I still have moments of anger, moments when I wonder what my life would have been like if Sofia had never existed. But mostly I feel grateful. Grateful for the strength I discovered in myself. Grateful for the authentic relationships I've built. Grateful for the chance to break generational cycles of dysfunction and create something better. My child will grow up knowing they are loved unconditionally, not because of what they achieve or how they compare to others, but simply because they exist. They will learn that boundaries are healthy, that love should never hurt, and that family is about choice as much as it is about blood. The birthday dinner from hell taught me that sometimes the worst betrayals are also the greatest gifts. They strip away everything false and leave only what is real. In my case, what was real was my own strength, my capacity for love, and my determination to build a life worth living. And for that lesson, painful as it was, I am genuinely grateful.